Watch the entire video, my lovely viewers, to get the whole thing. Without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you lovely viewers.
Wonderful day that the Lord has made, and we shall be very glad in it. These are instructions, from the word of our Lord Jesus Christ. It's a wonderful day that the Lord has made, and we shall be glad in it. We have various updates to give you, but we'll concentrate on just two, and we'll quickly open phone lines because we want this to be a program, because these matters are public interest matters. The matters regarding, number one, the standoff between the family of the late President Edgar Chagwa, and President Hakainde Hichilema on the other side, and the state. And this Bill 13, the Lands and Deeds Registry Amendment Act, that government is pushing very hard, especially State House, to shift powers from the Lands Tribunal Court to an individual, a junior officer at the Ministry of Land, a registrar, like a registrar of societies. This, I think, has caused alarm in all stakeholders. So we'll discuss those two issues quickly, and we'll invite you to participate in this discussion. These are very public matters, and we want to hear you and your concerns. Let's start with the matter in South Africa. There's a calendar. Remember, the state on 25th June sued the family of the late President Edgar Lungu. They sued the widow, the children, and the cousin, I think the cousin to the late president, including the spokesperson and the undertaker, the place handling the remains of the late president. They were sued that they shouldn't proceed with the funeral and burial of the late president. And since then, the court gave a calendar of events. The Attorney General should file his arguments. There should be a return by the family also to respond to the Attorney General. Then there'll be a court trial that should start on 4th August. Then judgment will be delivered on 18th August. So the Attorney General submitted his case to court. He said they were entitled as government to bring and repatriate the remains of the late president to Zambia. They demanded that the family and the government of South Africa, who they now added the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation to the legal suit to compel the South African government, to compel the widow and the family to surrender the remains to the Zambian government, and that those remains were going to be repatriated to Zambia for state funeral and burial. The family has responded. The family is very categorical. The state government, President Hakainde Hichilema, have no role. They have no right to the remains of the late president. These remains are a subject of interest for the surviving, the widow and the family. The next of kin are the ones that are entitled to. And they've stated that the laws that the Attorney General is submitting in Zambia could apply in Zambia. They don't apply in South Africa. And there is no such things as cultural traditions. And that the precedent that government is relying on is a faulty one. You cannot just bulldoze yourself against the wishes of the family and the late president on account that the person who died was a former head of state. And then remember, we are dealing with a former head of state whose rights were taken away, whose privileges as former head of state were stripped. And we have shown letters in the past where even his office as the 6th president was closed. We showed you the letter of Dr. Oliver Kalabo, who's Deputy Secretary to Cabinet, who wrote a letter to the president on just the following day, on 29th, October 2023, the day after the late president announced that he was returning to active politics. So they wrote him a letter that they would take away the security, the state security, they would take away the cost of benefits, they would take away, they wrote to PSMD that his salary that is entitled to, 80% of that salary should be taken away. They took away all his entitlement for medicals and holidays. Then they also closed his office as the office of the sixth president. We have shown you that letter, and that letter is among the bundles of documents that have been submitted to the South African court. So the family has argued that even these privileges you want to assert didn't exist for 2 years because you even closed the office of the late president. Surprise, surprise, this evening there was a demand letter that has been, that we've come across, where the Attorney General is saying his client and public interest and personal interest would like to see the body, and that they've sent a representative to South Africa to see the body, and they've said the representative of President Hakainde Hichilema is ready beginning today. The representative, I'm saying President Hakainde Hichilema because he's a state, he's the one that has sued. He's the one that, because even in that wording, they are using public and personal interest. So they are saying for public, you and me, personal interest, President Hakainde Hichilema, they need to see the body. And they are saying this is for purposes of authentication, this is for purposes of confirming, and that they want the family to access the body in between today, 29th, up to 1st August. The representative is already in South Africa to look at the body, inspect it. Remember, on 25th June, when the court gave, the Gauteng Court, Pretoria Division, gave a court order, among the issues it directed were that the only people allowed to be with the body was the family. Respondent number 1, who was Mama Esther Lungu, up to respondent 7, which includes the spokesperson for the family. The family, the widow, the children, the family spokesperson are the only ones entitled to see the body. Any other matter you want access, you have to go back and seek permission from court. The Attorney Generals, however, written through their lawyers, VFV attorneys, that they already have a representative in South Africa to look at the remains of the late president. Now, the wording is like I said, public, they are using public and personal interest. Public interest, we know. Personal interest, whose personal interest do they wish to see the remains of the late president? Whose personal interest? Have you come across that letter? Should I read it? You can tell me in the comments if you want me to read the letter from the lawyers. I can read it. It's just 4 paragraphs. But in case you haven't, if you've seen it, we can just proceed with the discussion. But in the comments, if you want me to read the letter from the latest document from the lawyers for the state, for the Attorney General, I can read you the letter. I have the letter. Now, the fascination about the body is a reason we have this standoff. When President Edgar Lungu died, on Thursday, 5th June 2025, Mulambo Haimbe, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, arrived in South Africa. One reason, to pick the body. He had the Zambia Air Force plane waiting at Lanseria Airport. The family said, whoa, take a minister, take a nyeni. No, we have to take the body because the president has instructed that I should return with the body. We are ready to buy the casket and we want to go with the body because the president has to declare a period of national mourning. The family said, however, ne take a nyeni, tefyo chaba. Imwe, wa president na president, ba late president, mwalishwa padi ba, impasasa. From 2021, your president has harassed the president. He came here, the last 6 months he's been here. You have not even cared to find out where he stays, how he feeds, how he pays for his medical bills, how he sustains himself. The entire 6 months he's been here in South Africa. You just can't come up in one day and demand the remains that you want to take them to Zambia. That was the first standoff. They held the president died on Thursday. They held another meeting Friday evening when Mulambo Haimbe arrived. There was that discussion. On Saturday, they had another meeting. The family insisted, we have lined up activities. The latest we can be in Zambia is on Wednesday, because on Tuesday, we have allowed the family to host a church service for the South African community. It's a tradition by the Zambians in South Africa to mourn any Zambian that dies in South Africa. They usually hold this funeral. There's a chaplains under ZASA, which is very active, and you have Catholic priests and the Catholic community, which are also very active, led by, Father Harrison Mlenga and others. So they said, no, we've lined up this activity on Tuesday. On Monday, we saw the withdrawal of Mulambo Haimbe, and we saw the arrival of Secretary to Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa. He was accompanied by two senior people in our country, former Vice President Enoch Kavindele and former Secretary to Cabinet Leslie Mbula. The family was immediately offended because for Enoch Kavindele had already issued some terrible statement just a week before. Leslie Mbula has consistently issued disparaging remarks against the late president. So the matter immediately went into a standoff because the family was not willing to discuss with the special envoys that were sent. And Patrick Kangwa then reverted. I think he must have spoken to the president and then began to engage the family without these special envoys. On Tuesday, the church service took place. Wonderful church service at the Pretoria Cathedral, where the Zambian community in South Africa attended. And at the end of that service, you saw the family spokesperson come to the podium and announce that we had agreed that we had announced that the body would return to Zambia on Wednesday. Unfortunately, it would not, because we are still engaged in discussion and everyone will be informed. The country became aware of the standoff that had been existing since Saturday, since the case of Mulambo Haimbe. They went into negotiation. I think it was a give and take situation. The family finally accepted Honorable Enoch Kavindele and Honorable Leslie Mbula to be part of the negotiating team. And the negotiating team began to expand. More people arrived as the talks were going. And finally, we had that breakthrough where an announcement was made that the body would return, I think, to Lusaka on 18th June, and that burial would take place on 23rd June. It was not to be. A day before the body could be repatriated to Zambia, we saw an announcement by the Road Development Agency, and they stated that we're going to close the Leopard Zoo Road from Crossroad. That's a road that takes you to Chifwema. And the family was alarmed. This was the night before they were to repatriate the body the following day. Announcements were made, preparations were made, the country was moving smoothly. Everyone was waiting for the remains of the late president to arrive on 18th June. So the family picked a call. When someone has alerted us that you close the road going to Chifwema. Remember, there was a detailed agreement that the body will arrive on this date. It will arrive at the airport. Military honors, the body will go to Chifwema, and body viewing the following day at Mulungushi International Conference. The period will go up to valedictory at the Supreme Court because President Edgar Lungu was a lawyer. And Saturday, Sunday, there will be that special service for people who come from the region, the heads of states and former heads of state, that was going to be hosted by President Hakainde Hichilema. Monday, the funeral service at the showgrounds, open to the public, and burial to take place at Embassy Park. All sorted out. But that night, before they could leave, we saw that announcement, public announcement, that the road to Chifwema, which will be a route for the remains of the late president, will be closed by the Road Development Agency, because they were going to do some works. The family spokesperson immediately alerted his contact person in government, who was the Secretary to Cabinet. This was around 20 hours. Secretary to Cabinet, we have an issue here. Why are you closing Chifwema, the road leading to Chifwema? The Secretary to Cabinet said, no, that should be an oversight. But you are the same government. Everyone knows where Chifwema is, where the late president lives. And everyone has been following these matters. And we are still in a period of national mourning. So how is RDA beginning these works tomorrow to do this road? Remember, we are living in an atmosphere of suspicions. The two parties are suspicious of each other. Even when they're negotiating, they don't trust one another because trust has broken down. President Hakainde Hichilema had spent a lot of time harassing his predecessor. He was also accusing his predecessor that when he was president, he harassed him when he was in opposition. And the period leading to now the loss of the president was, you can imagine, the atmosphere was quite difficult. So within an hour, and credit to Patrick Kangwa, a letter was given to the family, a copy of the letter to the family, where the Road Development Agency suspended the works. They were supposed to start on 18th of June, and they suspended them to 10 days later, way after the funeral had passed. So the family was reluctant, but was satisfied they had received the letter and that the Secretary to Cabinet had acted promptly to their concerns. Just as they were dealing with this matter of Chifwema Road, Leopard Zoo Road and Chifwema, a program leaked. Causeway, a rogue media from State House, published the detailed program. There was nothing wrong with the detailed. Cabinet Office, I have stated on this program that I saw the program from Naomi Teta Mashimba. She put it on her page. And then, it proliferated. It was on other pages as well. Of concern to that program were a clear departure to what had been agreed. First, the family were very shocked that in the program, upon arrival, when they bring the body, that there will be a church service that would occur at a designated place. Remember, the entire airport was going to be cordoned off. Security was going to be at maximum. And then there was this church service, undefined, which was going to be conducted by who? Unknown. In a designated place. Which designated place was this church service going to take place? At the airport. Every detail, every comma was agreed upon in the agreement. And I think I can play, for Makebi Zulu, he made it very clear, at least he read out what they had agreed. I think he wanted to commit government. So in the presence of Secretary to Cabinet and the entire negotiating team, Makebi Zulu was brave to read a detailed program from A to Z. So at least we have an idea of what the program was. And that particular church service at the airport was not part of it. And you and I know a church service is a church service. There'll be body viewing, there'll be prayers, there'll be... So who had included this and who was going to conduct this? Who was going to see this body? The family raised alarm. There was another one on Thursday, I think a provision on Thursday that stated that when the body viewing begins on Thursday, because the family had expressed the wish of President Lungu and the family that as far as possible, the current president, President Hakainde Hichilema, must be very distant from the funeral, extremely distant. He was allowed the church service or memorial that was going to take place on Sunday, that Sunday 22nd, because he was going to host his fellow presidents and fellow dignitaries. That was sealed. But in this program, President Hichilema now had the church service at the airport. And now on Thursday, when the body was supposed to be given to Zambians at Mulungushi International Conference, they want to flag off that to see the body first was President Hakainde Hichilema. You have seen that program. If you haven't seen it, we can make it available. You can see it on our pages. So the family again called, Bakangwa, nge program. No, I don't know about this program. I don't know what's released. It's premature. But the details in the program, trust immediately broke down. Because remember, there was no trust in the first place. There were just threshold. There were very thin threads holding the trust between the family and President Hakainde Hichilema. And immediately it broke down. When everyone became aware of it, everyone was angry. What is this? We have made it very clear. President Hakainde Hichilema must be very distant from the remains of the late president. What is causing these anxieties? Why does he want to have a private church service at the international airport when the body arrives? Why does he want to be the first one to flag off this, when the body is allowed to be seen by the public, at Mungushi International Conference? Why should he be the first one to do that? Yet the instructions were very clear. That was the last communication by State House, by the family and cabinet. Again, to his credit, Patrick Kangwa issued a brief notice to tell the country that they should disregard the earlier program. But trust had broken down. And the program, as detailed as it was, revealed a complete departure to what was agreed. That was not the only item. There were other items where government had totally departed from what they had agreed with the family. But the following day, the family made a firm decision because there were now other activities. The following day, everyone had packed to come to Zambia to go to Lanseria. There was a military honors mounted by the South African government that was supposed to take place. Everyone was ready, SABC, NCA, everyone, including our media, they were at Lanseria. But the family had to make a very difficult and hard decision because words had filtered. First of all, the roads were closed. From Chifwema, the entire lineup, I think it's about 12 kilometers. From Chifwema, Leopard Zoo Road, all the way on Greatest Road up to the airport. And then the road from the airport turn-off in Charleston up to the airport was clogged with security, and they had literally fenced off that entire road with the lying and kusondela. They had just closed it off. Even family, remember there was a group of former ministers' spouses who were supposed to receive the former First Lady. Even they couldn't have access to the airport. The family made a very difficult decision that the environment was hostile. The environment was not suitable to mourn or, for the country to receive the body of the late president. And that government was departing. Government clearly nichofie umwaleso muinavela ile program ngataya fumine. What they had planned is what was going to happen. So the family, on the side of caution, postponed to bring the body to Zambia. And you remember that the family spokesperson had to make that announcement. It was read by the sister to the late president. And everyone called on President Hakainde Hichilema to back down. Everyone, the church, everyone. Just what Mr. President, delegate, there's no need for this tension. Let us bury in peace. Why don't you adhere to what we've agreed, Mr. President? Everyone pleaded with the president. Everyone. And I'm looking for that video. Just a minute so that we are all flowing at the same time. Yes, so that we are all flowing at the same time. Everyone just advise the president, stand down, Mr. President. You can delegate, adhere, stick to the program. Stick to the program that has been announced. Let me just look for that video briefly.
Your Excellency, the country would want to know what really excites you know, when you were at the helm of this country for 27 years. I'm sure there must be one moment you can point out to.
No, I think that my happiness, Owen, is that up to this point in time, as I've said already, I've not come across a single man in politics who is today thinking of splitting Zambia. Apart from this is my head man in Zimbabwe, this is the southern province. He tried to do that, I think, but he didn't succeed. This is what he's.
Okay, so we.
No, I think he will finish that one.
Okay.
This is my southern province. What is he? The man who is running his party.
Which one? Magande?
No.
He comes from Southern Province.
Southern Province, yes. This man who is he?
Hakainde Hichilema.
Hakainde
Hichilema.
Hichilema.
Hakainde Hichilema.
Who running his
UPND?
UPND. Apart from that, there is no other leader I can fear to run this country. All these others who are running parties, I can't see any one of them trying to destroy one Zambia, one nation.
Wish you well.
If it's a felt need of the family, for example, that the president should not personally be in attendance. So what do we, why not delegate? Why not delegate? Why not delegate? Yes, it's awkward, but unusual situations, unusual circumstances may demand unusual responses. And it will appear, the problem that we have as human beings is that we think they now would have lost, then they have won. But sometimes backing down and then allowing certain things to happen may not necessarily be a loss. It could be actually a sign that you are greater than the other because you are ready to, to back down and give way, and for the sake of the greater good of the country.
That's the video I was looking for. There are other voices, we have them, but it will take away from our analysis. But the latest is President Hakainde Hichilema, through his Attorney General, has sent a representative to South Africa to have access to the body. They say they want to authenticate, they want to confirm, they want to inspect the body of the late president. Their lawyers, VFV attorneys, have written that strong letter, and they're even threatening the family that if you don't give us access to the body, we'll go back to court, because the court order gave you access to the body, only you, but they said you could grant us access. So there's already that crisis. President Hakainde Hichilema tatwishiwo batumine, but at South Africa, the lawyers are saying beginning today that person is ready to inspect the body. Let's analyze that briefly. Before we go to the mystery, the mischief, no blush, let's go. Let us assume that they want to authenticate. What would they want to authenticate? When President Edgar Lungu died, other than the family confirming that President Lungu had died, President Cyril Ramaphosa issued his condolences. President Jacob Zuma issued their condolences, and other leaders. Remember, it took 7 days for President Hakainde Hichilema to speak on this matter, but other presidents were already announcing the death of the late president. And former President Uhuru Kenyatta penned a very personal letter that he had lost a personal friend. Is there a dispute that President Edgar Lungu died? That would be preposterous, clearly to be preposterous First, he died in South Africa. In fact, at a commercial hospital associated with some of President Hakainde Hichilema's friends and partners. You know, remember Netcare and others are private hospitals run by business entities. This is a matter the president can easily verify. Two, they have a death certificate. And in that death certificate, they had even ridiculed the family by publishing such a secret document, such a confidential document. Because to repatriate the remains of the late president, a death certificate has to be issued. For a death certificate to be issued, there has to be doctors that have to sign. For doctors to sign, they have to see the body. Take Zambia, where you can manufacture material document, my constituents material. No. South Africa has rigid laws, and there are ramifications if you participate in fraud. So this particular matter is hurting the family. Why do they want to authenticate? What do they mean, authenticate? These are just injurious words against the family and against even South African government. Would South African authorities issue a death certificate based on what? What would they issue a death certificate for? I think forger and you know, and people think that you can get away with it. This is a very serious matter. You've seen the grieving widow. To date, she's still in deep grief. If you see, anytime anyone visits her, she again just goes into that deep grief. But President Hakainde Hichilema has been very insensitive. When there was an application before court, Koswe, you remember Koswe is run from State House. And I've always said, it looks like President Hakainde Hichilema is an administrator to that page. We know the boys that are under media who run Koswe. But because he has failed to close that page, it looks like he's also a co-administrator. So Koswe was running parallel stories. Now they've produced documents from Zimbabwe. No, they've produced, you saw that day there was a lot of anxieties in our country. Yet none of that happened. This was a mere application for interdict. Let the funeral not take place. We have consensus. Former president of Zambia, we want him to be buried in Zambia. In fact, the judges, as being Africans, the deputy president of that court, of that court, himself sat among the three judges. And they were very sympathetic. They said, we will use this opportunity, we'll stop the funeral and burial. But we hope that the state and the family can come together, resolve this matter, and put to rest the late president in an amicable, in a respectable and dignified manner. But what was Koswe running? Insults and insults against the late president. And then their praise singers rose in unison to ridicule the family and the late president. So you cannot in one way want a body, but in the other way, you create this hostile environment for the family even to fear to come back to Zambia. What circumstances like those can the family accept that President Edgar Lungu be put to rest in a dignified, respectful manner? It would simply mean they'll be participating in hypocrisy, because that means they have to close their eyes and shut their ears and see that they have not seen any of these things that President Hakainde Hichilema is doing. I think that's a matter where they've refused to participate in that hypocrisy. He can have his own hypocrisy. He can host his own funeral. There's even a bigger hypocrisy. President Hakainde Hichilema keeps on telling every guest to State House that he's not moving because he's mourning the late president. Is that how you mourn the late president? Tormenting the widow, suing the family. Now you are ridiculing them. You have sent Kashinga Niwana ni Mutumine. Bese bamone Chitumbi. You know. What is this obsession with the body? What is this obsession with the body? And you say you want to put him to rest in a dignified manner. I've got a video where the president was saying, that when he met the American ambassador, let me just check for it. when he met the American ambassador, he told the American ambassador that he hasn't been moving, he hasn't gone anywhere. He hasn't gone to Luindi ceremony. He hasn't gone to Mutomboko because he's mourning the late president. Is this how you mourn the late president? Then he lies that he's negotiating with the family. Who? The family is asking. The people you have sued who are in court are asking, who are you negotiating with? Who are you speaking to when you say we are quietly engaging the family? Publicly or quietly, they have not seen you engage with the family. And how about withdrawing the case if you are really negotiating with the family? That should be the start.
If it's a felt need of the family, for example, that the president should not personally be in attendance. So what do we, why not delegate? Why not delegate? Why not delegate? Yes, it's awkward, but unusual situations, unusual circumstances may demand unusual responses. And it will appear, the problem that we have as human beings is that we think they now would have lost, then they have won. But sometimes backing down and then allowing certain things to happen may not necessarily be a loss. It could be actually a sign that you are greater than the other because you are ready to, to back down and give way, and for the sake of the greater good of the country.
It was ready and willing to have President, 60th President remains brought to Zambia and be buried with all honors, befitting a former Republican
with the
president.
condition that President Hakainde Hichilema should not
when you remove President Hakainde Hichilema in the equation, you must be out of your mind, because President Hakainde Hichilema, as far as we are concerned, he's the head of the Republic of Zambia at the moment. And you cannot take that away, regardless of what you feel or what you have for him to say, look, this gentleman should not be there. Those are imaginations. Some of us have indicated sitting here that I know President Lungu. And I know nowhere where it's written that President Lungu said, if I die, the one who challenged me or beat me in an election should not be part of my burial. Never. It was never there.
How can you allow somebody who has murdered your son or your daughter and you are still mourning to come and attend the funeral and even to speak at the funeral?
But how good your son
was. And you know about it, you say, wait a minute, what's happening? And I think I can just say the whole thing. I summed it up when I spoke to one guy. I said, because how can you, Ambassador, a Catholic, be remembered in a Jehovah's Witness hall?
Yeah. I'll reduce myself. Whether I'm in business or not business, let me be. My sister, if I'm not in airlink, kusanga pali katotobwe, balisha kafuswa, pali kama zatu zamwa madero, tabena nekiwe, Wafyasa mkumposha nake nazakere kunuma mune ya kuchiriro nati awe ndao Cape Town umwana ali chutu kokuru ako ndao Cape Town so na iwo wale mpiki na mulembera message nati na papata uisa senda panto bala kuishwa tuba kwa embassy na wale na ono hasuka na lembe fana lembera Friday na Friday send and alafu aweza ni music pia kwa mapa airport don't worry ni mwandi musa Africa efo tuwafikire na kwa ndia connecting na afu bila na kumbi na zita na ebana baita content hotel bampe bandeta na motoka posto alishi bana na tindetele ni motoka ndia paso itu alikupritori so let's sneak out.
Now basala na bapwankamana ku
na bapwankamana kwa wale jogging where I'm going kanji ni mfuma So vena tavachirokuzhivati ndimu thing. So ndikashandi program hiyo nachipuisha lero around 10 hours.
Ushamuchiri ku South Africa? No wonder they ukutumina nomoko.
Yes, that's why so ndimurumu pano nachiwera. Ukumaking sure that tuwapampamisha.
I see.
Yes, from where you go, initially, Nachiringo kushita joined as leader of opposition. Joina, yes. So, Nachafe minga to shimbi. So, Natira, Twise Kuzambia, my sister, mwewe na boss. The next move, you and me. Our boss. Tupange twabika charity tupange abantu b'Mulungu bachite demonstrate nemfa njaba mfukishe kashiyani bajaji ba kuno bakapanga ruling based on the public outcry in Zambia to support the Attorney General.
Okay.
So abantu bafika ko pa street.
Okay.
Bamachinga namaplakasi cover belt. Lusaka. This then. You get the point?
Yes.
Today for about the ECL no ifwe. Look bali president was look bali mfite katia PF.
Nomboko ba judge balelanda kuti bafilwa government to government kuti bafilwa
apa one judge afuna okulia because the laws ya muno yali ba wiki when ngachaisa pamfwa family alikuwa tapwa maka pamfwa that boma.
I get it.
Yesterday, June 18th, the people of Zambia were prepared to receive the remains of our former president, but were surprised by the family's reversal of their agreed course of action. At our request, the South African government prepared extensively with military honors mounted by the South African Defense Force, who did so in vain, as the former president's body was not availed by the family for repatriation to Zambia. For this unfortunate situation, we extend our sincere apologies to President Ramaphosa, the government, and the people of South Africa. Fellow citizens, our country cannot afford a state of indefinite mourning. We've done everything possible to engage the family of our departed 6th Republican president, and we've reached a point where a clear decision has to be made. Given these circumstances, I therefore wish to inform the nation that as of the end of today, the 19th of June 2025, this particular national mourning period is officially over. This will allow the country to begin to return to some normalcy.
The country tried to move to normalcy except President Hakainde Hichilema. After that, the family had no choice. The man cancelled the period of national mourning. It was supposed to go up to 23rd. This was on 19th. He cancelled the period of national mourning. And he says, look, they can do whatever they want to do with the body and with the funeral. He cancelled. And the following day, they were even discussing the EU-fated bill, Bill 7. And their praise singers went into celebration, even insulting the remains of the late president and there were all sorts of voice notes and insults against the late president. So the family made another difficult decision. They said, Dawe, but we know but Sambilamo. We are going to hold a private funeral and we'll bury here in South Africa. And they made the announcement that the burial will be on 25th of June. And they announced to the country and they began the preparations. And you remember by Monday, Zambians had gathered in Johannesburg to support the family, also to remember the late president. It was regrettable that our former head of state was going to be buried in foreign land, but it was inevitable. The family gave us a window of their plans. They said someday there'll be a fair government, a fair government that will respect the office of the president, a fair government that will respect the former head of state, a fair government which will allow us to bring the remains of the late president back home. This was not isolated. There are many presidents, many leaders that have been buried elsewhere, and at an appropriate time, they've then been repatriated to South Africa. South Africa is a prime example. We even have a special cemetery at Leopards Hill Cemetery where we're burying ANC fallen heroes, and that's why it has been easy for them to repatriate those bodies. The ones that have remained at Leopards Hill Cemetery sometimes is because of family connection. Maybe the fallen hero married the Zambian national, and the Zambian national has children, and they have not consented to the remains to be repatriated to South Africa. But those that had no issues, South Africa had since taken all its remains that were buried in Zambia back to South Africa, because there is now an African government, a government that they fought for, a government that liberated them. So the family also stated, someday, when we have a just and fair government in Zambia, the remains of the late president will be brought back to Zambia. But regrettably for now, they have to be buried in South Africa. And we move forward, let the country come back to normal. Bobasa later injunction on the day when people are traveled by road, by bus, by plane, and South Africans had come, whether it was from KwaZulu-Natal or from East London or from wherever, they had traveled to mourn at the cathedral in Johannesburg. But let's put things behind us. They got an injunction, and this is where now we are today. Why we are discussing this matter, why we are thrusting it before you, is because two events happened. In the morning, Mama Esther Lungu's lawyers filed a defense against a response against the Attorney General, who demanded that the family and the late president's remains should be taken to Zambia. And he demanded that the family and the South African government must surrender the remains of the late president to Zambia. And two, this evening, we saw a letter where the lawyers for the Attorney General have stated that for public and personal reasons, they want to view the body. Public interest, you and I understand. Whose personal reasons do they want to see the body? Who have they sent to look at the body? Abantu bakwalesa nangu tawabidi muri if you have Satanism, if you have Freemasons. You know, you're feeling if you're a believer in God, you just sense evil. Is there evil in this process? If you believe in good, evil exists. If you believe in the Lord our God, Almighty God, you know that he has an enemy, a constant enemy called the devil, enemy. So for people that say witchcraft doesn't exist, then they don't know God, because he tells us that we fight against these principalities all the time. They set up altars, they pray against the work of the Lord. So the evil exists, and I don't want to discuss it, but all things are pointing to that. What is this evil? You don't mourn with a widow. The Bible warns you, don't hate the widow. Don't hate the orphans. Because the Lord says, I myself will take it upon myself to bring wrath on you. Despite all those provisions, you can fear. But they have taken the widow to court. We want to Akwalesa. We had decided that we would discuss the issue of Bill 13. I think we'll not do justice. Let's deal with this emotive issue that is still standing in the way, that is refusing to allow us as a country to move away. We cannot move. We can't stop mourning because the late president hasn't been put to rest. Ghana had its president lie elsewhere for 20 years. It took 20 years for the remains of Kwame Nkrumah to be repatriated back to Ghana. He died in Poland. Sekou Toure said, no, there's a bad government in Ghana. There were various coups in Ghana. People had rebelled against Kwame Nkrumah and his visionary, instigated by imperialists. They didn't want the vision of Africa to take foothold, so they didn't want to respect Kwame Nkrumah. But when a proper government came that recognized that they were Ghanaians, they were Africans, and their interests were first, the remains of Kwame Nkrumah were repatriated, back to Ghana after 20 years. So, if you have Bill 13, will not do justice. The president, State House this afternoon, interfered with the process because the committee has been hearing from stakeholders. You saw Dixon Jerry, you saw George Sanga, the lawyer, you saw Law Association of Zambia, you saw Land Alliance, you saw all these stakeholders. The church demand that bill be withdrawn. You cannot give powers to a registrar. We have seen when we have a registrar who has powers, they banned the PF. So imagine if you give similar powers to a junior civil servant, such powers to revoke your titles. And we have President Hakainde Hichilema who has said he doesn't want, he doesn't want people to. Where is the president? I don't like to paraphrase what he says. I like the president to speak for himself.
Part of your mandate there, as a devout Christian, is to whisper Zambia's agenda: peace, security, stability. Don't be like others. I know we have a shortage of land on so-called state land, titles. We want to create land on title properly, not taking a plot that belongs to State House, at State Lodge, and rezone it and allocate it to friends. Really? Someone can take land in State Lodge which they already know that is a controversial area. And really somebody is signing a title deed on land that belongs to the state already? More importantly, under this president? Icona, you don't survive when you do those things. You just don't.
He has warned you, you won't survive. Already Masebo has issued notice to cancel 1,500 title deeds that were issued in State Lodge, Chifuema, and Chongo area. 1,500. The Daily Nation have carried that story. Masebo is very harmful to the president, but the president doesn't see it. She has left a big crisis at Ministry of Health. The U.S. government has withdrawn $50 million this year. There's an audit. She's left fire burning. She has now moved to Ministry of Lands. And the president is like a puppet. Now they are illegally cancelling title deeds. He's even trying to bring a law to give powers to a registrar who Masebo can then instruct. She can cancel Ayama title deeds. She can cancel Ayama title deeds. Mr. President, you're playing with fire. The right to ownership, to property. You're a businessman, you understand. Is a fundamental right guaranteed in the Republican Constitution. You're playing with fire, Mr. President, when you continue to abrogate the Constitution. You are abusing human rights, you are disrespecting human rights, you are disregarding the Constitution. The Constitutional Court, your own court with your own men, just reprimanded you that you broke various constitutional provisions in your attempt to enact Bill 7. Now you want to go to what people own, right to ownership. Masebo is cancelling title deeds that were issued in 2013, 2017. And now you want these unilateral powers.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Alright, that's all for you today, lovely viewers. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video you just watched in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers. Once again, I go by the name of Mutati Mpundu. I love you, peace, I gotta go.
Audio